Okay, we are standing around in the 248K mod run on Ribbon World, and today we're going to talk about ingot factories and ingots and stuff like that in the 248K mod, because they seem like they produce some pretty good things that I wanted to talk about. They turn up at kind of the early, I think the early fusion stage, kind of yellow tech kind of thing. They're not too tricky to make. They've got a bunch of things that go into them, but they're all things that you're going to have because you need them for other things in the 248K mod anyway. Several of these materials come out of the composite factory, which has a bit of complications with it, but they're also things you need for purple science and rocket silos and stuff like that anyway, so you can make these things. And yeah, the ingot factory is pretty good. The ingots will make ingots for all of the rich water metals that you need, starting from about the fission phase, and going forwards. They will also make steel and copper and just regular iron. I think this is actually a bit of a trap. Maybe we talk about that later. But it's the ingot factory. We're going to talk about the ingots because the ingots are really good. To talk about why they're good, we first need to talk about rich water, because rich water is, all those materials come from rich water, and rich water is a little bit of a pain to make in a good way. It's a nice puzzle. All of the patterns for rich water, this depends on which powder, and this is about the cleanest recipe. Needs corrosive solution, and there's a bunch of mess going on in here, and corrosive solution itself needs hydrofluoric acid. This is the later, cleaner way of doing it that can just make rich water itself. All the earlier ways are various complications of different inputs and different outputs, and also still always hydrofluoric acid, fission stage. Yeah, there's 4 of these recipes. It's a resource that's very similar to something like the mineral sludge in C block, where you need it to make a bunch of other products, and there are a bunch of ways to make it, and it's kind of a knot in your resource generation where everything has to feed into rich water somehow and then diverges into a bunch of other products. It doesn't do everything, it just does the fission stage metals, the gold, the neodymium, the stuff like that. Every recipe also requires hydrofluoric acid, which itself is not super easy to make. It's a bit of a pain. So there's a bunch of work to get the rich water. And so getting a decent amount of stuff out of your rich water is a big deal. And so the way this normally happened, the way this was happening for me before I got the ingot factory is you've got an assembler, it takes rich water, it spits out the ore and wastewater in a kind of a very similar kind of C-blocky kind of, let's turn this into the ore we want way. And then there are also recipes, fusion stage. There are recipes for the other kind of metals as well. I think this one was set to titanium, wasn't it? Yeah, and then there's an arc furnace, and it's the kind of normal 248K 1:2 ratio of arc furnaces to metal casters, and then we get out these plates, and this setup it gives us, a decent kind of throughput. Then we've got an infinite source of rich water because we've just molded in some pipes and stuff like that. The ingot factory changes this a little bit. There's still the assembler that's making the ore, there's still an arc furnace that's making molten stuff, and then, I didn't actually talk about this, did we? Yeah, so let's clip out this pipe so we can have this recipe staying in one place. The pre-ingots recipe is 100 molten to 1 plate, so let's remember that number. That's important because in this comparison, the ingot factory is over here, and this thing does 175 molten titanium to 1 ingot, and then in this assembler, this recipe needs as an assembler, is 1 ingot to 2 plates. So the ratio going via ingots is a slightly better ratio that gives us more titanium per unit of rich water, which is cool, isn't it? The answer, no, is the answer to that. That's not why it's cool. It's not all of why it's cool. To understand why I think this is even better than outlined by this quick comparison, we need to talk about Stokes modules and productivity bonuses, which I've kind of set up over here. Yeah, so we've got an empty assembler which has nothing changed about its stats. We've got a prod mod 1 in an assembler that has a bit of a hit to crafting speed, 4% productivity. The prod mod 3 that we all know has 10% productivity. We've left out prod mod 2. Sorry, prod mod 2, nobody likes you or uses you. And then 248k mod has a couple of other sequences of mods that also give productivity bonuses that can only be socketed into 248k recipes. Okay, this one is, yeah, this level is 12%, and then there's a 10% one here, which is the same as a prod mod 3, which seems pretty good. These other ones over to the right are ones I haven't unlocked yet that also have, these are a bit more flexible. There's a lot more recipes that these versions can go into, but we're looking at, yeah, 25% productivity, plus 100% pollution, plus 6, this is just one module, and it's plus 500% power usage. Pretty wild. But the one that I've ended up using, and the one that we're going to use as kind of the basis for this analysis, is the Stokes 2 module, because it seems pretty good in comparison to its neighbors for its numbers, like 10% productivity, 60% pollution, minus 35% crafting speed. The next grade above this, which I actually haven't unlocked yet so I can't use, is a lot more pollution, a lot less crafting speed for only an extra 2% productivity. So we're probably going to go most of this stuff with Stokes 2 modules. But what happens if you poke those into these machines is, yeah, this arc furnace can't have regular productivity modules in it. It can only have these Stokes or the even fancier Gauss that we don't have yet. So this is a way of getting productivity bonuses out of these things. So the rich water, which is difficult to get, which we want to conserve and leverage as much as we can use these modules to get 20% productivity out of the arc furnace, and then another 20% out of the metal caster stage for a kind of a net result of, I mean, these two are multiplicative. It's not even 40% better, it's like 44% better or something like that. That's not 44, that's 12 times 12, it's going to be whatever, 1 point... yeah, 44% better. Sure. But it's not, like, we're not doing a video about metal casters, we're doing a video about ingot factories. So what happens if we do this in the ingot factory setting? Well, the thing that I think makes ingot factories particularly great is that it gives us another stage where we can stack on another productivity layer. Like, this is the entire process without the ingot factory, and we've got two phases of production. Each can give us 20% productivity uplift over whatever source of rich water we have. But with the ingot factories, we've got the metal caster, 20% there, another ingot factory, which is another 20%, and also remember the ingots had a fancier recipe that gave us some other slight advantage, and then assembling machine 3s, which we could even get 40% from, except when I was messing around with this, like 4 of these things gave me such a big speed penalty that beaconing them up to get enough stuff out just didn't seem like it was worth it. And this is, yeah, this guy's still slow. It's still, even with the speed 3 in the assembler, even with the beacons, this thing is running slightly slower than its normal operation, but it is giving me another 30% productivity that's multiplicative with all these other layers of productivity, and so we're getting nearly, basically a full red bat out. I think this kind of pattern, with probably even with these beacons in the middle and this kind of thing, yeah, I don't really want to talk about matching beacons to throughput, and even why in the abstract productivity modules are good and how to ratio things like that. We'll just go productivity good. This is probably the pattern that I'm going to be using for all of this going forwards, because I think I mathed this out to be not in comparison to this one, which is already pretty good, but in comparison to arc furnaces, metal casters, no modules whatsoever. I think I calculated that this setup gave me about twice as much titanium or gold or whatever out for the same amount of rich water in, which is kind of a big deal when rich water is as messy to get as it is. So this is a nice little way of like leveraging all of that kind of stuff. I guess the other point that's big about this is people who will remember the metal casters and arc furnaces video that I did about why these things are good, these things just don't have pollution ratings. So the fact that the Stokes module makes the pollution worse is just not a consideration at all, because 0 plus 70% is still 0. The electricity usage goes up, which is a material thing, but by the time you're in Yellow Science early fusion stage 248K mod, you probably have a clean energy supply if you want anyway. Like, either, you know, a big solar thing, maybe some nuclear plants. The power is probably not a big deal. The pollution is also not a big deal if you're not doing biter things. But if you are doing biter things, then not being able to get another 40% pollution, 40% productivity for 0 pollution, pretty fantastic. And then the ingot factory also doesn't have a pollution rating. That being said, the assemblers do have a pollution rating, so these things end up polluting quite a lot. I mean, they're not as bad on the power grid. These things are pretty bad on the power grid. What are they, like, 9 megawatts just for this thing by itself? So I think the fact that it needs an assembling machine on the end that gives it some kind of pollution footprint makes it just quite good rather than just super busted. I think if we were able to get 20% productivity into 20% productivity with a slightly better recipe into another 30% productivity, and none of these had any pollution anywhere, that would be super strong. As it is, this is good. I like this. Yeah, so we're going to use this pattern a bunch. We're going to get rid of probably all of the... I don't even think that I'm going to build the arc furnace metal caster version of these things anymore. Yeah, get some rich water. Get more stuff out of your rich water with layers of productivity bonuses. Ingot factory pretty good. That's pretty much what we wanted to say today, yeah.